Do you really know what is identity and access management, or what's the difference between identity management and access management? Let's separate first identity and then access. So, Identity Manager, as a meta directory, will connect and receive information from one or more HR systems. As well could return back any required information. Identity Manager Engine will synchronize accounts, attributes and permission to Active Directory domains, ERP systems, and any kind of on-premises or SaaS applications. The action of creating an account, providing some kind of access or permission is called provisioning. The opposite is deprovisioning, where you remove an account or a permission. Combining this into use cases, provide the capability of identity lifecycle. Let's start with joiner event or onboarding. The joiner is the new employee that is starting at first day of work receiving automatically all the accounts and permissions based in his job position, location, department, or even a combination of that. Next we have the mover, or a promotion. When the user is promoted to a new job position, then moved between branches or departments, where we need to remove some kind of permissions or access and add something new. With that we could provide a workflow approval or a campaign review, like a micro-certification, or even do all automatically. Finally, we have the leaver, or offboarding, where the user is leaving the company and we need to remove all the permissions and accounts of the user in multiple systems. With that he is not consuming any kind of license and the accounts cannot be used anymore. However, we can inactivate instead of remove it, for auditing or historical purpose, if is that the case, for some applications. Another process is the access request, which is provided by a web portal, where the user can search and catalog multiple permissions and accounts, adding to a shopping cart, where this will trigger some workflows, with as many levels of approvals as requested by the company policy. By the end the user will receive the permissions and accounts automatically. This could configure to have a starting date or an ending date to effectively provide the access or removing the access as well. The segregation or separation of duties are two or more permissions or access that conflict with each other. So, together they are toxic. In this way, you need to have a stronger control with some actions, like proactively identifying those cases with violations, preventing or doing some mitigation control, or event adding additional level of approvals in a workflow. The password self-service is a portal, where the user can not only change his password accordingly with company password policy for the company, but as well he can do the reset of his password, using other kind of information like security questions, multi-factor authentication or other methods to validate his ownership for that account. Finally, let's talk about Access Manager. The Access Manager responsibility is to be a central point for authentication and authorization. For that he provides a login page where the user provides his user ID and his password, or even multi-factor authentication. Access Manager will validate that in the IDM or AD, and then it will verify if user has authorization to access that application. If is authorized and he is authenticated, he can access that application. If he goes to the next application, could have the effect of single sign-on. If you had any external application, you can do the same, using some kind of federation protocol. However, if you had some legacy application, you could inject the HTTP headers or use form fill. If you have a user store for customers and linked to the access management, you will have the CIAM, customer identity and access management. For customers, you can provide social login, you can provide progressive profiling, a password self-service as well, but most important, you must need to scale and distribute that between multiple sites. Next we have the adaptive access. That is merged to the authentication process. So we need to measure the risk. For that, we collect information from the user. Using geolocation, HTTP headers, what's the device that user are using now, what's his history, is the IP address in a blacklist or in a whitelist, user cookies, information from his profile. And if is that not enough, we can merge with the user entity behavior analytics to follow the user for a certain time and understand the user authentication process. With all that info we create a risk score. If the risk score is small value, you allow the user to access with a better user experience. However, if the risk score is medium, you could request an additional multi-factor authentication, like an OTP or a push notification. However, if it's a height risk, you could block the access and notify the SIEM or SOC, even with syslog. This is a height-level overview of identity and access management. I hope now you could differentiate what's the priority for your company: to automatize the provision process or improve the security of authentication and authorization process.